The Panthers. How about this? We're going to frame this around the Rico Dowdle signing.
Okay.
But it's a bigger conversation. I like what they're doing ahead of the draft, and this could be a dramatic way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, it is.
Okay.
So just
be dramatic. Let's do it.
A little grain of salt. Don't take it that seriously.
We're in Charlotte.
They're making it so they don't have any or else you die positions going into the draft, right? Because the thing you don't want going into the draft is to have a position that you are so in need of that regardless of how the draft falls around you, you are forced to make that selection, right? Even if we don't really like this guy, but if we don't get a fill in the blank position, our team is incomplete. We won't be able to do what we want to do. So Rico Dowdle, running back out of Dallas, coming over from Dallas, it's a nice signing. Okay, I don't. It's not going to like get my heart rate up in either direction. It's a nice signing, 1,000-yard rusher. The contract is up to like $6.25 million.
Yeah.
For the price, for the risk, I'm good with it. You could also say 3 years ago he was a special teamer in Dallas and couldn't get any carries, but he ran for 1,000 yards last year.
Hey, Chuba Hubbard 3 years ago also was not a feature back.
It's a nice signing, but what I like about it is they had moved on from Miles Sanders, ironically, who signed with Dallas. Kind of a little flipsy doodle there going on.
I think Panthers win that trade.
Miles Sanders goes to Dallas. Raheem Blackshear was moved on from. Jonathon Brooks obviously will not be available this year. They needed a running back. And so much so that when we talked about the draft, we were like, all right, they absolutely need to grab a running back in the draft, right? Maybe third round, right? Maybe fourth round, depending on how the draft falls. Now, with Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, if the draft just falls in a way that you're never up with say there's a ridiculous run on running backs in the second round and the 10 of them are drafted in the second round. You come up in the third and you're like, we planned on drafting a running back here, but now the guy we like isn't. You don't have to then go, well, let's settle for our F choice, right? Mm-hmm. A, B, C, D, E are all gone. Let's settle for our F choice. You can say, well, we have our two guys. We can supplement that with a veteran in free agency on the cheap, or we can wait for someone to get released during camp. We can grab a UDFA, an undrafted free agent rookie, and we can be okay, right? There's no or else we'll die positions. And I think the same is kind of true with somebody like Pat Jones, the edge rusher that they signed from Minnesota. Is he your ideal number one go get the quarterback guy? No, but again, let's say before the 8th pick, there's a run on edge rushers,
which is possible.
And then potentially say Jalen Walker is there, or Michael Williams is there, or Mike Green is there, whatever it is, and it just happens to be a player that on your board there's a deal breaker, right? There's something that your team just doesn't value about Jalen Walker, and he's the one that falls to you at 8. You don't have to make that pick because you have Clowney, you have Wanham, you signed Pat Jones. It's not an or else you die position. And you don't want any of those, right? You don't want any of those at all. And yeah, I mean, we could go on. I could do this for like 5 positions, right? Roseboom, the off-ball linebacker, makes it so you don't need to go get somebody for depth behind Josie Jewell and maybe Trevin Wallace, or Wallace behind Roseboom, however that goes. It's you have a roster that is at least complete enough that you don't have to force what you know in the moment is a bad pick just to give you the necessary pieces to play.
We saw this team last year have such little depth that when guys got hurt, it was just like
Dunzo.
It was done.
Yep.
It was done, especially on defense last year. But we saw the depth on the offensive line and how much that paid off. Okay, now you're trying to fill those spots across your whole roster.
And that's where the other thing comes in. They are good enough to fill out a roster, but they're not so good that it's going to prevent you from taking someone at their position either. If in the third round, one of your favorite running backs falls and you thought they would be a second-round pick, but they're there in the third, you're not going, oh, man, why did we sign Dowdle? If we knew that this guy was going to be here, we wouldn't have brought him in. Same is true for edge rushers, right? If the world turns on the axis funny and Abdul Carter is there, you're not going like, we just spent all of our free agency money on an edge. It doesn't, our roster doesn't make, no, you go get the best players available because for all of they fill whatever tiny gap you needed to make it so you weren't desperate. They don't fill it so well that you have absolutely no need for the position, right? And like it does happen occasionally. Quarterback, it happens, right? Like if Shedeur Sanders falls to 8, the Panthers aren't going to go, he's number 1 on our board.
Yeah.
Where we got to take him. It's like, no, you have Bryce Young. You'll be good. But edge rusher, interior defensive line, running back, wide receiver, these are all positions that they've signed enough if they were to play tomorrow. But they haven't filled with such valuable pieces and spent so much money that you head into the draft with a, like, hey, we really don't need them. Those are the positions that I think they're doing a good job with. And also, the cap situation is something you have to worry about, and they haven't spent the exorbitant amount of money on any of these positions. It's a nice kind of, I'm like, fundamental move that they, like, they've been making Tim Duncan moves since like after the first day of free agency, right? It's just been bank shots from the elbow, like no Sports Center top 10 plays, but also no Sports Center not top 10 plays. They're just like, hey, we finished shooting a high percentage and we've set ourselves up for success in the draft.
There's still an area that concerns me, that it's almost like we got to get something. Otherwise,
or else we die position?
Yeah, it's in their secondary.
Safety or corner?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we have seen the injury history of J.C. Horn. I know he played 15 games last year, but history is there. After he and Mike Jackson, I know you have Shaw Smith-Wade, who's more of an inside slot guy as a nickel.
All three of them will be on the field at times this year.
Yeah, they will. Okay, well, who's after that? That's a massive question. Who's after that? At safety, yes, you got Trayvon Moehrig that you just signed. You have Damani Richardson coming back, who's an undrafted free agent last year. After that, who is it? That is a major concern for me right now on the defense. Yes, they bulked up the front, but in that secondary still needs to have those depth pieces that you're talking about, where, for example, like the offensive line, hey, we can plug in Brady Christensen and we don't miss a beat. At safety, if Morin goes down, who's that next guy up? Last year, you thought you had that with Nick Scott, which obviously was not the case. But there is still a question at those spots. I like the top end, at least of the 3 spots right now on the secondary, but right now they need to also satisfy that need too.
So what I hear is you're not a big Shamar Bartholomew fan?
I mean, the guy who didn't play it last year?
The name alone is worth a couple of points. Shamar Bartholomew.
Great name, but he was healthy and active for much of the year last year.
I look at it this way. Trayvon Moehrig, the money, and J.C. Horn, the money, they're going to be scraping the bottom for the depth there. And that comes with having the top shelf guys. Those are the Sports Center top 10 highlight signings that you made this offseason. It is J.C. Horn taking care of one of your own, making him the highest paid defensive back in NFL history. And then Trayvon Moehrig being the big ticket item that they brought out of the I almost said transfer portal.
Yeah.
Free agency class.
Might as well be.
Yeah. And they transferred him from Oakland or from Vegas, got him over to Carolina in that secondary. Those guys are going to have to make up for deficiencies elsewhere if they are there, because that's why you pay guys a ton of money.
All right, 60 seconds or less. Because of the depth at edge rusher, if there's a top end corner at 8, you take it?
I don't know if there is a top end corner that's worth 8.
Outside of Travis Hunter.
Yes, outside. Well, he's not a corner. He's a superhero.
He's a unicorn.
I don't even know if he's going to be playing it. Like, I think he's best,
but aside that, the question still stands. Do you think a corner is worth taking at 8?
No. I don't. I just don't see the dude this year. I don't think there is a Pat Surtain, J.C. Horn level prospect, which fell about that range, that late
where Horn was picked?
Late single digits pick. I don't see a prospect that good in this year's draft. So no. And I see a bunch of edge rushers that might be, and there you go. The hard part is second round, because I think second round there's going to be some really good wide receivers, and I think they still need that help. And there could be a couple corners that could be values there. That's going to be the tough decision, and that's why they paid Dan Morgan the big bucks.